Welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. This week, we're going to talk all things warm-ups and cool-downs, and in particular, how to make those more efficient for your training so you're not wasting a ton of time, or if you're the one that is shorting out on your warm-ups and cool-downs, how to do it more effectively to get that in before your training session. So we've got Mr. Jake Foster, Mr. Dom D'Agostino with us today. Jake, do you want to kick us off on your initial thoughts on
cool-downs are
overrated?
We read one meta-analysis in the 30 seconds before the start, and we read that cooldowns are overrated.
Don't listen to Jake. Don't listen to Jake.
We don't know. We cannot confirm that. I just Googled it really fast, but don't kick it at me. Kick it at Don. Give us your initial thoughts on warm-ups and cooldowns.
I think warm-ups, I think this would be a good place to go, actually. Warm-ups for a training day or a training session, and then warm-ups for a competition.
Yeah.
And the difference also between like cool-downs on a training session and cool-downs for like between events, and the effect of that and like being able to eat and things like that. Like those would be cool things to address. I was also thinking about that while I was out at Rogue recently, is just like, what is a necessary warm-up for a workout like the duel, where like we find out the workout the morning of and it's like a minute long event versus like a warm-up for the run, rope climb, lunge workout that's like 30 minutes. And then, you know, a workout that has like a lot of barbell in it, super heavy, what that warm-up looks like and prioritizes versus like what we did for the long running event.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's a really good point. Maybe we start there, just like, let's take a step back and just talk about just in your normal training, because most people aren't going to competitions every weekend. And so you got to figure out how to be more effective with your warm-ups and cooldowns in a day-to-day training environment to make sure that you are properly warm so that you can execute well in your training. And I think a good rule of thumb for most athletes would be, if it's a really short, high-powered workout that you're planning to do, your warm-up actually should be pretty extensive. You want to make sure that you're primed, all of your systems are primed for that really intense piece. If it's a longer session, maybe, you know, Dom's your coach and he programs a 30-minute kind of easier zone 2 or zone 3 session, then you can actually have a shorter warm-up, condense that down, because you don't need your nervous system as primed for that, or your soft tissue as primed for something that's going to be easier or less intense on your body.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like I have a lot of athletes right now too doing sessions where like session 1 is like majority strength because they're still in like more of an off-season phase, and then their session 2 is like aerobic work. And the warm-ups for session 1 compared to session 2 look completely different. Right?
What do you see at competition, Dom? Because you probably have the most in-person competition coaching experience. That's fair to say, like out of probably me and Brandon combined now. Do you think athletes are underdoing it, overdoing it? Like, what do you typically see? Not even just the athletes you coach, but just athletes in the warm-up area in general.
I think you see both. I mean, obviously, like the higher someone is up on a leaderboard, the more warming up they're going to do throughout the weekend. And the lower they go on the leaderboard, the less warming up they do throughout the weekend.
Why do you think that is? What?
I think they're just like, what's the point? Just go out there and rip the workout. I'm in like second to last, so just whatever.
Full send.
Yeah.
And then ironically, they full send, and then they freaking hit the wall.
I also think like nerves play a little role in that. Like I always find athletes, even like when they're doing well, they like warm up way too much for the first couple events and then like settle into a rhythm because they're like so nervous about what's coming up. So they like over warm up sometimes. And I feel like that was something I was thinking about a lot this past weekend at Rogue, is like how to help athletes like not over warm up. Like sometimes they do too much, especially with like how muscular some of the workouts were, or like heavy. It was just like you could literally do too much and then go out there and like just be zapped.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are they doing too much of? They're doing too much of like machine work and they're elevating their heart rate too high, or you see that they're doing too much, like you said, too many contractions in the warm up?
Yeah, I think it's just like too much of like the actual workout prep. So like we would like activate, do all of your, you know, aerobic priming work, and then like general movement warm up, and then build up to the weights in a workout. And then all of a sudden, like people are doing like 4 rounds of the actual movement prep. And by the time they go out there, they've done like 15 back squats at workout weight. Yeah. And so they're just like dying on the back squats.
Yeah, especially when it's heavier loading in a competition format. You want to be careful because you don't want to tax your nervous system so much that you go out there and you kind of like have that adrenaline dump right off the bat. And people have been like, I've been there in a competition where it's like, I got to really warm this up because it's heavy. But then I go out there and I'm like, man, I am exhausted before the workout even starts. So that's really important. Can we take a step back and maybe give everyone a framework that I think works well for both competition and for regular training of like, what would the system be if like I had scaffolding for my warm-ups, like maybe just like a 3-step process? One of the things that I like to do with my athletes is kind of give them this framework. Number one is you want to do some aerobic prep. This is just like general blood flow body warm up. We're trying to like basically create a little bit more malleability of the soft tissue, get our heart rate and respiration rate up slightly, but not in an intense way. Once we've done that, and you can do that 1,000 different ways. I'll have you guys kind of maybe give me some examples of that. Then step 2 would be any joint specific or activation based stuff. So for example, if it's a bunch of heavy squatting reps that I'm doing, then I need to warm up my ankles, knees, hips, whatever else it may be for that athlete. If it's just a bunch of overhead stuff or I'm doing strict handstand push-ups, then maybe I'm warming up my wrist, my elbows, my shoulders, but that's more joint specific for the workout. That would be kind of phase 2. And then the third phase would be making sure I'm doing sport specific work, which Dom, that was kind of your point earlier of you're actually doing maybe intervals or sets of the competition workout or the training workout. So if it's a 15-minute AMRAP of rowing, burpees, and double unders, I'm doing a couple rounds of that, and I'm working my way up to an intense pace, but I have to be careful, Dom, to your point, to not overdo it before the competition.
If I broke those 3 down, in my experience, I would say most everyday athlete, which is, I mean, that's our audience, right, would like that general aerobic warm-up, skip.
Yep.
Yeah.
The second portion of like mobility, soft tissue work, overdo it, in my experience is what I've seen. And then the third phase, underdo it. So it'd be like skip, overdo, underdo.
Yeah.
Right.
So
in
that's
a
typically
competition setting, I see more of skipping the second part. A lot of people will come in, do like 5 minutes on a machine or 5 to 6 minutes on a machine, and then immediately just like jump to the workout and skip all of the soft tissue activation, mobilizing, any of that stuff to like improve position.
Yeah.
I see that a lot.
Part of that's like nerves, right? They're
For
like, I got to
sure.
get to the movements right away, so I'm just going to like really spend my time. And then that leads to overdoing it because let's say they come in, it's 60 minutes before the workout, they do 5 minutes on the bike or 5 minutes on, you know, whatever machine of their choice. They're like, I got 55 minutes before they call me. Now I'm just going to do intervals of the workout. And you're just like, it's a full training session before they go out on the floor.
Man, we come into the conversation, we're like, what are we going to talk about with warm-ups? And now you start unpacking it and you're like, man, there's so many layers, because then you could talk about timing, which you just brought up. But to go back to it, I'm guilty of, in a competition setting with an athlete, letting them underdo that second portion of, what do you want to call that? Like body
Activation,
I think joint specific warm-up, right? So it's you're targeting the actual like parts of the pattern that you're going to do in the workout.
Which I think you could even, without even getting into the value of it, you're almost, it's like, what is one of the number one rules in sports? You don't change routine on game day. And then I'm guilty of like having athletes do that too. It's almost because you're like, as a coach, you almost get a little antsy. You're like, does it really matter if we do this banded lat mobilization right now? Like, let's just get up on the pull-up bar. Let's get moving a little bit. Let's get your heart rate elevated. So, yeah.
I think that that you made a really important point, and this is going to be something I touched on later on, but let's go ahead and just jump there right now, and then we can go back to kind of those phases. This is just like nutrition, where you don't want to have these like drastic changes going from training into competition. So with your warm-ups, if you're an athlete that has a particular warm-up routine that is effective in your training, you don't want to change that on game day and do something completely different, because your body will feel different when you go out there on the floor. So you should be essentially like practicing your warm-ups in training to make sure that's dialed in, so that when you go to a competition, you're doing the open, you're doing a quarterfinal, you can warm up the same way, and then your body feels the same way going into that competition.
Yeah, I think that's something I feel like a coach has to learn with an athlete too, is because sometimes like athletes actually prefer to warm up a little less, and some athletes like prefer a longer warm up, and you have to be able to actually adjust that per athlete. And I think that like that's something I feel like I learned with Roman this time, is I actually figured out exactly like how much he needs and what he likes.
Unless of course they don't like to warm up at all.
Yeah, I think I used to over warm him up.
Like
in the couple competitions I've helped him at before, where like this time I focused way more on the timing. And I was just like, hey, just hold up. We have like so much time. Like just go do mobility in the corner and like just get your mind right. And like let him do that. And then I like kind of walked him through like activation. And that's something I've actually changed a little more recently, is like usually I have him come in. I'll do like 5 minutes easy on a bike just to kind of like flow things. But I actually come back to an aerobic prep on the machines after activation work. So like if it's a heavier shoulder movement, like the chipper at Rogue, the first chipper was like predominantly upper body. All of our activation stuff was like prehab for the upper body, like activating lats, activating rotator cuff stuff for the log, like some bicep elbow warm up prep. And then we went like some movement specific, and then we got aerobic, and then we went back to like the intervals of the actual workout. And I've actually really liked that flow for CrossFit, because it actually allows them to spike their heart rate a little bit before we get into the workout movement prep, because that's actually how they're going to feel the movements on the floor. And I found athletes like that better than starting with a bunch of big aerobic work, then going into activation, because then they feel like they actually like cool down during the activation before they get into the workout specific prep.
Yeah. If we take it back and just like talk about those different phases though, what are maybe some things that you guys would do with your athletes just based on what the workout is? So like, for example, if it is just like aerobic prep, what are some good principles that you guys would use just to kind of like slowly kind of ease the athlete into, again, getting their heart rate up, maybe raising their internal temperature a little bit, priming them before they do anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like you said, in that first phase, just blood flow, like you said. And then I think, I know you could look at the workout and be like, oh, there's rowing or skiing, let's row or ski. I think the one machine that's like universally good for that first phase is the echo bike.
Yeah.
Right? Concentric only. You get the arms and legs involved. I think almost no matter what the workout is, the echo bike or the air bike should be the go-to machine for that general aerobic warm-up.
I typically don't use a rower or a skier unless there is pulling in the workout.
Yeah.
Like pulling or hinging. Other than that, I always use like
even
the
then
two
I'll
bikes.
put it with the echo bike or something
Yeah.
like that, because you get the push-pull in with the echo a little bit. The other thing too is it's always a gradual increase, right? So a few minutes, but each minute or every 90 seconds or so, just getting a little faster, right? Just to ramp things up a little bit too. So
yeah, even on like the last workout for Rogue was like the 50 cal echo bike hard. I did use in there like even like a little sprint. We did like a 2 or 3 rounds of like a reverse Tabata before we went out there. And that was another thing, is like, speaking of timing in that, it was like how much to do. We had the workout finished before it, and they had 35 minutes before they corralled for that last event. So it was like, what did we actually do? We actually just rested. We used the reverse Tabata as like a primer, and we carried the sandbag and sent him out.
Yeah.
So he was already aerobically primed from the workout before, which was burpees and overhead squats. His legs were already ready to go, like muscularly. So it was just like, okay, touch the energy system so he can feel the sprint on the echo bike, and then make sure you have good mechanics on the sandbag.
I do think another principle I think is safe to say that you would think about too is if your athlete is in a multi-day competition, the further or deeper into the competition, probably the less they need of that general aerobic warm-up at the beginning. And I think that's where you could get right into some of the joint prep and then get into specific prep, or at least truncate that a little bit and just make it a little shorter, because people are just exhausted.
Well, I mean, that's big, especially to your point of multi-day competitions where you have 6 events. You can't spend an hour warm-up on every single one, plus the actual workout, plus a cool down. It's a lot of toll on the body.
Well, it's energy expenditure, right? Like it kind of goes back to our point of being there's no free lunches. I say that all the time, right? But even on like, Dom, you're real big on this, like your active recovery days are not active recovery. So even you time out all the time, you just spend sitting on the bike, and it's like you have a 3-day event and you do a 7 to 10 minute, you spend a half hour on the echo bike, even if it's just an easy to moderate effort throughout the day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's something I've been doing too, is like actually adding in nutrition to people's warm-ups. Like as they go, like Roman did that multiple times over the weekend. This weekend, I think it helped him a lot. He had like literally like gel packets of glucose. And when we were like 30 minutes out, he would shoot that with like he had like a caffeine gum that was like 25 milligrams of caffeine, and he would like take the glucose.
That wouldn't do anything for me.
And then, well, I
Give
think
me
he
like
had
6 of those.
yeah, for real. I need like a 300 milligram chewing gum.
Do they have those?
Yeah. I think it's called Zyn, but straight to nicotine. Yeah. So he would like use that with that probably like 3 times throughout the day, but he had it like more caffeine in the morning typically, like before he would even start with breakfast. And then based on what the workout was, if it was more like sprint style, he would use the caffeine. If it was a longer workout, he would not.
Yeah.
Fun
because
fact,
he didn't
by the
want
way,
to spike his heart rate.
Who taught him about the gum?
I think his wife.
I was going to say, was that you? Because that's great.
No, I wish.
That's actually
His
the
wife
fastest
is a genius with that stuff.
Fastest way to
into your
absorb
system.
caffeine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're absorbing it sublingually.
Right.
So it's like it would be gum, I think, then liquid, then pill.
He was one of the only people I noticed in the warm-up area like consistently like ingesting carbs like a specific time out from the workout, and then like a specific time after the workout, and then like timing out his meals.
Well, those gels only take about, it depends on the person, right? But like 10 to 20, maybe 15, 20 minutes to actually digest and absorb.
Right.
So that is I mean, in the endurance world or marathon world, like that's the big thing is everybody in the corral is sucking a gel down, typically a caffeinated gel in the corral right before they start.
Yeah. I do think you have to train your stomach for that, especially
for sure.
CrossFitters, like with how hard they're going in workouts. Like there's not a lot of people that can handle like what he puts down. It's impressive.
By the way, not a great idea to be hammering, what's the candy everybody likes?
Like Sour Patch Kids or something?
Yeah, not as ideal as a gel.
Yeah, just funnel red dyes.
Then
rot your teeth.
You can't, I think it would be, slower to absorb that than it would even a gel, right? Or liquid. So, but and then if you haven't practice that. Everybody goes to the local competitions and they're just hammering
trying to do
weekend.
what they see.
I mean,
they're not doing it in training.
Right?
Yeah,
like, this is awesome.
I don't have much to say about the second phase. Joint specific
well,
prep.
let's just dive into that just briefly because I do think it's important that most people get into this. At least this is my experience. I've seen people that kind of get into the same routine where they just like go joint by joint, because they do a lot of, especially masters athletes, like overdo that portion. I think, but then they may be warming up joints they're not even going to use in the workout, and so it may be wise to like really narrow that down. So I guess my one tip would be really think about going back to this kind of patterns versus parts. If you have certain patterns in the workout, again, a squat pattern, then think about the parts that you're using in that. So your ankles, your knees, your hips, and really make sure that those are warm and you're in good position so that you can have good movement economy in the workout. Same thing. If it's an overhead and you really lack your overhead position, you got a handstand walk, then spend time activating the rotator cuff and, your scap so that you can stabilize correctly overhead.
Could you give a time frame? Do you think it's fair to say, hey, listen, I don't really want to see an athlete in the warm-up area spending any more than blank time, 10 minutes, 15? What would you say?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that or know the research on that, but I do think that I've seen people that spend 25 to 30 minutes on it. And that seems a little overly ambitious, especially just wasted time, just kind of like sitting around. So I prefer to like really have some targeted drills and only spend, probably it is that 10 to 15 minute range where we're really targeting what's going to get them into good positions. We're not trying to change positions for the long haul. We're just trying to get them into good positions for the workout.
Well, I think then too, back to Dom, your point, physiologically what's happening, you've just elevated heart rate a little bit. We're not there yet. That'll come in phase 3 where we really want to ramp it up. You got blood flowing and everything. And then all of a sudden you start rolling around on the foam roller or doing banded hip mobilizations for a half hour. You just come right back down. Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't make sense physiologically.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of using that time as like actual activation and not just like foam rolling and passive mobility. I want to get them into the positions, activate the soft tissue that's going to be used, and then move into the next phase.
Yeah, I can kind of lay out like format of what I typically do at competitions with athletes is like first thing when they get there, I'll leave like probably like 10-minute section of the beginning of the warm-up for them to do like literally mobility of their choice. Like just let them pick something that like feels routine for them, like as if they were starting a training day. Then we usually do like 5 to 10 minutes of like really easy aerobic, depending on the length of the workout and what we're trying to do. And then from there, we'll go into like actual specific, like what I'll call like prehab or like activation for the workout. So if there's muscle ups in it, we're going to focus on like lats and shoulders, and we're going to do like upper body activation with a band or with light dumbbells or light plates.
General prep, we call it too. Right? Like passive hangs.
And that's going to be like maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm going to go into another 10-minute window where I'm actually starting to move through the movement patterns of what I'm doing. So let's say there's a dumbbell snatch in the workout. We might grab like a 20-pound dumbbell and do like some high pulls and some sumo deadlifts with it and some actually like single arm shoulder press. And then from there, that's like another 10 minutes. Then I'm actually going to start to build up in load to the workout weights and like really low rep like circuits, but not like for time. So not actually like spiking heart rate. Usually I would say for me, I line that up about 30 to 35 minutes total. And then there's about a 5 to 10 minute time frame of actually like hitting workout speed intervals and maybe like 2 of those. And then we usually just like stay aerobic, like cyclically something on a monostructure machine till we're called. And then if we mistime that, which happens a lot, we'll usually like throw in one more quick, like right when corral calls, because they'll usually stand in the corral for about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the comp. So I always try to get like one more quick heart rate spike before we go out there, even if it's just like 10 seconds hard on an echo bike.
You want to jump into phase 3? Like, there's one thing that like I think athletes almost always underdo is they're afraid of, especially the local competition scene, afraid of getting their heart rate elevated.
Yeah.
And not understanding like you want to and have to increase stress before the workout. Like what is happening? You want to increase cortisol levels, your primary stress hormone. it's a glucocorticoid, right? So its primary job is to liberate energy, right? Cortisol is going to help you break down glycogen, right? And glucose, which we've had multiple conversations on the podcast about how that's our body's preferred source of fuel in a CrossFit workout. And when you underdo that specific prep and you don't get your heart rate elevated, you don't get sympathetic, right? You want to be in fight or flight mode. You get neuroepinephrine, adrenaline, all these things are pumping, right? Like it's not just cortisol. That's where I see athletes underdo it all the time because they're afraid of getting tired. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I could say something to that, but we have to get the body stressed before you go out on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everyone, just like a very practical example, like everyone can do this. Go out and do a 2K row with no warm-up.
Cold turkey,
but truly try to get after it, and then a week later do a full warm-up and do a 2K row and see how they feel. Even if you got something to a similar time, think about the actual feeling of the workout. You don't want to be in every single competition and just feel like you're dying halfway through and trying to suffer through it. You need to make sure that your body is primed for the competition or even for the training day. I think that's really important because I actually have seen people that maybe do a better job in competition because they get nervous. So like, okay, I'm going to warm up. But then all their training sessions suffer because they shorten that and they're like, I got to get to the actual training piece.
And I think sometimes if they do that, if you don't practice it in training or do it consistently in training, when you get to the competition, you warm up that much, it freaks your body out.
Yeah, totally.
And actually exhausts it. So by the time you go out to the thing, you're not used to warming up that much that you're actually like suffer in the workout from that. Like it's something athletes should be doing like consistently. And that's why I said like it matters per athlete too. Like if I know an athlete doesn't like to warm up as much before a training session, I'll try to use the same amount of time. So if I see Roman warm up for 30 minutes before a training session, I'm really going to try to make his warm up 30 minutes before a thing. Even if I tell him to arrive, I usually always tell athletes like arrive an hour before you actually go, which is like usually 45 minutes before corral. And then you have to at least warm up like for 30 minutes before you corral.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, that's like simple time frame. Cause usually you can like get everything done in 30 minutes. People think it takes an hour, but 30 minutes is like usually plenty to get like your main aerobic work in, your activation in, and then your actual workout prep.
To kind of wrap up the warm up then, Dom, how would you maybe write a sport-specific warm-up for an event? So, you know, like, are you doing intervals? Or are you just kind of like going through it piece by piece? Like, how do you kind of like frame that for your athletes?
Yeah, so first we start off by going like movement by movement just to make sure like they feel good mechanically. And I'm not really like cueing them or coaching them up on that. I'm just letting them make sure they feel good at the movement. And then what I usually try to do is do it like under a high heart rate. So we'll do like a quick sprint on a machine, whether we're using echo bike, 10 seconds on an echo bike at like 90% effort. And then we'll do like 3 reps of the first movement, 3 or 4 reps of the second movement, and then 3 or 4 reps of the third movement if it's a triplet. And then we rest like 60 to 90 seconds actively and do like 2 or 3 sets of that, depending on the athlete and what they feel they need. And then that'll be it. All right. And the reps are always low on that, but we're trying to move fast.
Yeah,
like
fast
faster
turnover.
than game speed, low rep count, and just allowing them to actually feel the intensity of maybe like the speed they would try to move on the last round of the workout.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is.
I think you can only get away with that though, like the low rep, if your general prep, which you do, if you skip that general prep and go to specific prep, you're probably going to blow up in the workout, especially if it's a lot of muscle endurance. If you have 30 ring muscle ups for whatever reason in the middle of a workout and you haven't gotten a little pump in your arms in the warm up or lats or whatever, then you're going to blow up mid workout. That's another thing I've seen a lot too, where, you know, if you skip the general prep or you don't have enough, it's a dance, right, with volume and specific prep. And it is like context dependent. Okay, if it's heavy loads and you do too much volume at heavy loads, you're done, right?
Spend yourself, yeah.
But, and granted, you could do too much volume in a gymnastics movement. Let's use, you have 30 ring muscle ups. I still see athletes underdoing it. They're afraid, for example, of, I think of a Wadapalooza, right, with Guy. I'll bring it up. Like, we're at Wadapalooza. Guy does not warm up. Yeah, Dom knows that, like, at all. He'll, like, row for, like, 3 minutes.
He's better now.
Is he? Okay. Yeah. Well, you got to him, not me. And there was a workout. It was 30, 20, 10 dip and hang power clean. And in the warm-up area, I mean, we're 30 minutes out from the workout. I was like, hey, I would open, just as we're doing some, like, you know, general prep, do a set of 10 dips. Like, just feel good. And then we'll go shorter reps and do some specific prep. He's like, 10 dips, man. What if I blow up? I was like, dude, if you can't do 10 dips right now and then in a half hour do 60 total dips, we should probably go home. Like, we're not supposed to be here. The idea though is like, again, I still, it's underdoing. They're not elevating their heart rate enough, and they're not getting enough volume in. I think there has to be the asterisk though, because you can't just say not getting enough volume, then everybody goes out and does too much. It's a dance.
I think it depends on the movement.
Yeah.
Like if there's a bunch of legless rope climbs and I have if there's a workout with 15 legless rope climbs and I have a female that can barely finish the workout or will probably time cap, we're probably we might not even do a legless rope climb in the warm-up area, to be honest.
But when you're talking about dips and you can do 30 unbroken, we got 60 in a workout, that's the context dependent. And these are some of the principles that we need to, is it heavy? Is it high rep is something that you can do a lot of reps of? Like you're going to have a hard time overdoing burpees.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day, I think the biggest thing to like take away for warm-ups in a competition or even in training is like you're doing CrossFit, especially before like a Metcon portion or like intervals or whatever you're doing. If you don't get your heart rate up before you do it, that's literally just done.
Yes.
I think that people should get basically to the heart rate that they expect to get to in the competition, but it's just for short periods of time. So instead of it being 15 minutes at max heart rate, we're trying to get there just for 10 or 15 seconds in a warm up, and then we cool down, then we do it again, and we cool down, maybe do it a third time.
And applying that to training, if you have strength training, like 3-4 pieces, let's say, and then you have intervals, and you just go right from your strength training into your intervals, and you don't pause to get your heart rate up, at least on a machine.
Yeah, good point.
That is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, finish your back squat or your accessory work or whatever you have, then warm up for your intervals, like actually warm up for them. You might not need to really do any movement prep. Like let's say you have wall balls in the workout. You probably don't need to go do a bunch of wall balls if you just did a bunch of squatting in your strength session. But if you have wall balls and burpees, you should probably touch the movement mechanics of the burpee real quick and then literally get on an echo bike and spike your heart rate to the heart rate that you know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
The reason you don't want to stop and warm up is because you're like, oh, it's going to be painful in the workout. It's just laziness, but it will help so much to actually get something out of your intervals and not be smoked after the first round.
There are more layers to this than I thought that there were now that we're talking.
For sure. Yeah, I think we could spend another 20 or 30 minutes on
Let me sneak in two things. Oh, no, don't do it, Foster. I think one of the most underrated parts of coaching in person is timing in the warm-up. So I'd say, like, just to give a quick tip, very quick, if you're at a local competition, you don't have a coach, like get a family member or somebody to help time it out for you, like in the warm-up area, because you have access to all that, just to make sure you're not doing it too soon or too late, right? Because timing it all out is probably one of the biggest roles we have in the warm-up area as coaches. And then two, I got to ask this, for those listening, Dom, who are like, dude, I only have 90 minutes, 5 days a week, and I've got all the strength work and accessory work, and now I have intervals at the end of my workout, and now you want me to warm up for the intervals? Can you give like a couple quick hitters of how can you do that efficiently? Warm up efficiency. Like, do you have a couple strategies? What would you tell that athlete?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm starting a session with strength, I probably don't need to get my heart rate up that much really at all. So I would prioritize like activation for those specific lifts and just movement pattern for that. Like, I mean, there's no Olympic lifter at the Olympics jumping on an echo bike for 5 minutes before he starts his mobility, right?
I haven't been.
It's just, I mean, if you've ever been to a weightlifting meet, no one's jumping on a monostructural machine for 5 to 10 minutes before they start warming up for
skiing and rowing in the corner.
Yeah. So you probably don't need to do that. So just do your activation prep for your lifts and then do your aerobic prep for your actual intervals right before you go. Just take it out from the top and just do it after you do your squats and accessory work or whatever you do.
Yeah. I'll finish with just like one quick way that I'll do this with athletes that are really short on time. I have a couple that maybe can only do like 45 to 60 minute sessions. They'll still do like, let's say it's a standard 3 intervals to warm up for the sport specific stuff. Interval 1, maybe to Dom's point, would be like, hey, we're going to do a little moderate sprint on the bike, but it's like at 80% the first round. And let's say it is wall balls and burpees, since you gave that example. It'll be air squats, but really fast paced, because that's an easy thing you can jump right into. So they may do 10 really fast air squats and then 6 no push-up burpees. Rest 30 seconds, and then they go back to the bike. And now this one's at 85 to 90%. And now they grab a wall ball, but instead of throwing it, they're just doing wall ball squats, but really fast again, and then a regular burpee. And then the third set, they'll do the full interval where they're actually doing bike, full wall balls, and in full burpees. That's just an easy way that, you can jump right into it, and we're slowly increasing our heart rate with shorter rest, because, if you only have 30 to 60 seconds rest between intervals, you have that kind of gradual cardiac drift that happens across the 3, and then you're ready. It's not as effective as maybe taking 15 minutes to do that, but it's a good way if you only have 60 minutes in your session to warm up and do the actual workout.
Look at you just sneaking cardiac drift in real quick like it's nothing. Yeah.
I mean, I literally did that the other day in my garage. I did an
I do
echo
that
bike
all the
burpee
time.
workout. I did like 30 seconds on the echo bike easy, 30 seconds of inchworms, 30 seconds on the echo bike moderate, 30 seconds of push-ups, 30 seconds on the echo bike hard, and then 30 seconds of like burpees. Rested like 3 minutes and then started the workout.
It's a super easy way if you're limited on time, for sure. All right, let's kind of put it on its head a little bit and then go to cool downs. We'll just spend like 2 to 3 minutes on this because I know I don't want to hear Jake talk about overrated.
You only need 2 to 3 minutes.
You only need 2 to 3.
It's all waste your time. I'm just kidding. I don't believe that. So
yeah. What are just like some basic principles, maybe kind of thinking about different athletes? I'm going to steer you guys a little bit because I have a bias toward those athletes that don't move as well. So I'm thinking the athlete that maybe is young and super stiff, or maybe the masters athlete that has some mobility restrictions. How would you cool that athlete down versus maybe like the super young and healthy athlete that never has a problem sleeping, their nutrition's dialed in, and like their workouts are going well?
Well, your question, like it kind of leads toward what is the purpose of the cool down?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is we just said you want to get sympathetic, right? Fight or flight, increase stress hormones, and get like ready to run from a bear, right? Or run from a bear, wrestle a bear, whatever.
Maybe run
Do
to
both.
the bear. Yeah.
Ooh. I like that.
Attack
Run
that
to the bear. After the workout, it's the opposite. Do that again, please.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Don't ever do that again.
After the workout's the opposite. You want to come down from that. So you want to get parasympathetic as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and parasympathetic, we always call it rest and digest. Yep. And digest actually is a key component of it too. And I won't go into nutrition again.
No,
but
please don't do it.
Yeah, you want to get fuel in after, right? And in order to digest and absorb that fuel really well, you want to get as relaxed as possible, as quick as possible.
I literally told the athletes at Rogue that I wanted them to like cool down on a bike erg after events until they could tell me like, oh, I can take in carbs right now. And that they had to continue on it until they were like, oh, I feel like I can eat.
Yeah.
Not like a full meal, but like actually just like ingest a gel or whatever they had on them. Like even their liquid. Like sometimes they come off events, they're like, I literally feel like I'm going to throw up.
I'm
right
so
now
messed up. I can't do anything.
Push so hard. So I just like, that's the timing. I'm like, stay on it until you can literally walk off, come up to me and be like, hey, give me my carbs.
Yeah. I think a walk, a bike, and like all those are pretty simple. Even if a row, like you saw Tia and Jeff Adler like rowing after I think the first event of the games this past year, like whatever you got access to, just to, like let your body slowly come down. And then the most underrated cool down tool I think everybody should be doing is spending a few minutes on their back, breathing.
Yes.
Legs propped up ideally, but just whatever, like doing deep diaphragmatic breaths. It stimulates your vagus nerve, which controls the switch in your brain between your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And that will help down-regulate your system faster than anything could.
Yeah.
So
totally. That was great.
For someone who doesn't think cool downs are necessary, that was pretty good.
Hey, I do. I read one meta-analysis, the abstract, for 20 seconds before we started.
Yeah.
So
I just would finish it with like, if you do that and you can get back into a parasympathetic state, it's going to make the rest of your day better, especially if you have a stressful job or you go home and you're trying to wrestle with your kids and then you're trying to sleep that night. Like if you're just living your life always in that kind of like fight or flight state, it's very hard to be able to recover.
Yeah, I was gonna, like that meta-analysis from what we read in the abstract, right? Like to be fair, like it didn't mention, I don't think, the psychological component, RPE of the next session or anything like that. Like I think that's a huge component. That and digestion are like the two biggest components of it as well.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I was actually thinking about at the last competition too, and I noticed this a lot, is a lot of people will like finish their cool downs, do all that, get their nutrition and do all that really good. And then they get a ton of body work done. And I was thinking about that routine wise, like in warm-ups, we do like mobility and everything, but how often do we like literally get a massage after workouts? And I was just wondering like if that affects people or if it makes them sore, or like how much body work they're getting or how much it helps, or like can it improve soreness? Does it? I actually have no idea, but it was just something I was thinking about. Like I saw people getting body work after every single event, and I'm sure there's like little things, like some of it was just like, can you loosen up my lat? It like tweaked on the log muscle up or something. But if you're like getting body work after every single event and you never do that, like sometimes I get body work and it gets me like actually sore. And I was wondering about some people who got it, because I heard some people who I saw getting body work more frequently be like, I'm wrecked by the third day. And I was like, could that make them more sore?
I certainly wouldn't change anything from what you normally do. Like I think that's probably the most important thing, is really dial in. Training should be used to create progress, right? We all know that, right? So part of that process is creating progress with your warm-ups, your cool-downs, your nutrition, how you recover, all of those things. That's what training is for, so that when you go to the competition, it's all dialed in. And so, again, we said this at the beginning, but if you're changing your routines in competition, you're probably setting yourself up for failure. It may work for some people. Some people are more resilient or they can handle all the chaos. But I think for most athletes, they need something that's like very similar to their normal routine in competition.
That is, unless your routine sucks.
Well, yeah, I
Listen
mean,
to this
that's why you
podcast,
practice
champs.
it.
If there is no
Sure.
routine,
Yeah.
you need to make one.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Cool. All right, guys. See you guys next week.